Well, well, you finally show up, do you? Hey guys, thanks for coming back. Basically, when I wrapped up the previous video, that was this morning, a few hours ago. And we are just going to dive right in and continue our progress here, getting this 48 Chevy running. I'm going to grab my phone and we are just going to walk around, do a little refresher course, and get caught up on what we're going to do and jump in and do it. Let's get to it. Who was that? Need to get a towel over here. On second thought, there's no point in rehashing the same old hash. We are just going to jump right on in here, and as we do things, it's soon enough to know, right? If you watched the previous video, you know what we were doing. Come on. Way too many words are wasted anymore, right? Okay. So I am just kind of wrapping up these two wires. I'm going to run my coil wire. Just trim that bad boy. Like so, and we will get a ring terminal or a spade terminal soldered on there. I'm going to go a little farther with my tape. This looks so much better in my opinion with the old braided wire, but a guy can only do so much. Alright, I'll snip that in the clip there. Solder that on, and then we'll have to wait for the starter to get the other one. So I feel like what we're doing here, instead of nickel and diming ourselves to death, as the old saying goes, we're $200 and $300-ing ourselves to death. This thing still has points in the distributor, and you guys know me, I couldn't care less. If it has points, it has points. And away we go. Where's my solder? Here we go. Not really sure if the owner has an opinion on points, but that's another case where to do something more modern, the solid state ignition under the cap there, you're going to spend a couple $100, and that's just how it is. Is that better than points? It's hard to say, driving it around town, it's debatable whether a guy will ever even have to mess with it. It's debatable whether the more modern style will keep working. Carry an extra set of points in the glove box, and in 5 minutes you can be going again, where typically that will not be the case with the other. Answer the debate for yourselves in your own mind, in your own situation. I am going to make this so it can easily be converted, and the wires can easily just be run right to the coil. But anyway, I am putting a resistor, the resistor that was on here already, I'm running that on the firewall, and my wires, it's all going to be easily removable if anyone so desires. So I'm going to get this all wired up, and that is one more thing done. So I have it here long enough, and if Mr. Owner decides to do this later, I may even decide to do it before it goes home. Who knows? But I have this power supply, 12 volt supply, long enough that all of this can easily be undone. Obviously I'd have to put a fork terminal on there but this wire is long enough I can just swoop her on over to the coil and get rid of the intermediate one. So we have options, is what I'm saying. So here's my list of to-dos for the 48, the old honeydews, right? Some of these, it's actually not that bad of a list overall. Things like windshield and motor, that's going to be a longer project. Hopefully won't be too bad, but it will take, you know, the way things go, a couple days probably. There are some things I want to do first, and then I can set the car down, back on its feet, maybe even its foots. So adjusting the brakes, rear axle, fill up the rear axle also. That I need to put a vent in it, don't want to forget that. Shocks, fill up the fronts. I've got the rears taken apart and I need to finish that. Adjust valves, grease. I should grease the front end before I do that. And I think that's really it that I need to take care of before we set it down. So I'm going to concentrate on those areas, try to get those done. So I recently went through this with you. I mean, I just kind of glossed over it with the Massey engine, the Continental, and with the 194 in the Jeepster. So I think I've done a little bit more in-depth probably on the 48 Stylemaster, maybe on the 66 C20. I forget what all we've done together and what we haven't, so we're just going to go through in our firing order, setting each one as we go. Set number 1, turn the engine over to where number 5 is firing, set number 5, so on and so forth. So I was adjusting my parking brake cables and neither one wanted to return. Well, that's not going to be so simple on this one. On the right side, so you pull the cable. I've gone through this before. You pull the cable till it comes to a stop. You hold it in that position and then you tighten the nut on the threads up at the cross member. And then that's your adjustment. The other side, this crossover bar from shoe to shoe was not on the lever down here. And maybe we just have a sticky cable on this one. I'll try and move it a little bit. Seems to be free now. Well, let's see what it acts like with a shoe on, or a drum on. Yeah, that's much better. It was just sticky. So this is what our air cleaner's looking like. like I said in the last video, I'm not going to get too carried away about it. I did, however, fix the hole, you know, the gaping hole in it, so that's good. And then I got a paper element Wix filter 42296. That is the closest. If you go on Wix Filters filter lookup on their website and go by size, it becomes very apparent there aren't too many that are even close to this. So this is the closest one we can get, and that of course is replacing this original wire mesh doodab, you know. And what I did, I took the outer one, the little honeycomb looking thing. The inner one's welded, the outer one was loose, so I rewired it to fit snugly. Sort of like that. Now, unfortunately, this means that this paper element is about 3/8 of an inch taller than this thing was. So to compensate, the stud in the center here was about half this height. So what I did, I drilled it out. The stud was maybe welded. It was at least seized up in there. It wasn't coming out. So I drilled it out. I tapped it a 1024 thread and gave that an 1.5-inch machine bolt in that size. Put a nut on this side just to make sure it stays. And then we have plenty of thread sticking out the top. And my wing nut is now lost amongst all the junk, but it's here somewhere. Where'd you go, you wing nut? Anyway, that's what that's going to look like. Easily changeable. That is, I believe, a Kohler, like a mower engine air filter. Maybe we'll get a decal, maybe we won't. I don't know. So we developed a little problem, and that is a couple of these adjuster screws for our rocker arms. Right here. The threads aren't stripped, they aren't cross-threaded, they are just breaking off of the main body of the screw. When I move the nut, a lot of the threads are just gone, you know. Luckily, I went up in my storage attic at home, and I believe this comes from Sir Kevin out of Wisconsin, and we're just going to scavenge a few of those. I was happy to see that I didn't have to tear into one of my engines and take one of those apart. So, anyway, that's what's happening here. As soon as I've got those replaced, I'll finish timing or adjusting our valve lash, and then we can move on to finishing up the ignition system, get the distributor buttoned up, get the starter on, so on and so forth, working towards our battery tray, battery. I also picked up a couple of these hose barbs, 3/8 to 5/8 hose. Originally there would have been a shut-off here, so you could block the flow to your heater. I'm just going to run it without for now. They're kind of expensive. A guy could even simply go to the hardware store and get any kind of valve to put in there, and that would do the same job. Very simple if he wants to do that in the future. So I'm going to get those going, get our heater hooked up, got a fuel filter. I'm going to put this down on the frame rail somewhere in the vicinity of the battery tray, maybe accessible under the hood. We'll just see how it goes. But finish the fuel line to the pump, get that going. Then we can work on our buttoning up our cooling system again, wiring, get few wires I have left connected, and then we are well on our way to putting fuel in this thing and seeing if she'll light up for us. Now I think I'm going to turn my attention to the battery tray. You know, we got some missing parts and pieces here and there. So anyway, I'm just going to try to patch it together and make it work. See what we can come up with. I know I said I was going to do the battery tray, and I am. You know, I started looking at it, but I just keep getting distracted on everything I can possibly do underneath the car while it's up on jack stands, with the goal in mind of getting it back on its wheels. So, first thing this morning, I am going to get under the front end and grease it. I brought along my brake bleeder so I can do that. I've gone through and I have adjusted all of the wheel cylinders out, you know, so they're just barely brushing, so the shoes are just barely brushing the drums when you spin them. However, I did find on the front right, the outer wheel bearing is apparently quite a bit worn. I could not adjust the castle nut in far enough to take out all the slop in the bearing. So, which is surprising. Everything up there looks actually new. The grease looks brand new. So one guy or another has gone through it already, but just for whatever reason, that front bearing is shot. Now, I called my parts store, and by some twist of awesomeness, those guys have one on the shelf, which this is the old original ball bearings, you know. So I'm just going to simply throw one of those in there, and that should take care of that problem. Everything else looks good. So I don't know if I'll make it there today or not. A guy really needs to stay in the shop and spend, instead of taking 2 or 3 hours total to go to town and back and Walmart and grocery store and eating out and all of that stuff. But we'll see what happens. We're always ready for a distraction and a break, right? So anyway, I'm going to get under there, do those couple of things. You don't really need to see that probably. And then sometime or other we'll get that wheel bearing. Then maybe we can set it down on the ground. That'd be cool. I got 2 squirts out of this thing, and it's empty. I guess I'll be doing something else. Gonna at least clean my Zerks off. And I only say that because we're not in mixed company. Make sure I have no Black Widow friends or anything like that, you know. Take one of those bites to the eyeball, that'd be great. Also have a new hood at home. Doing me a lot of good there, is it? Okay. Well, the guy may end up showing this 2 or 3 times in 2 or 3 videos, but we're doing it all at once. I have sandblasted some parts here, the shroud or the cowling or whatever in front of the radiator for the 48. Jeepster, rear end parts, rear axle parts, brake parts there, and then our 40 Chevy springs, the main springs for the rear axle. Got them all cleaned up, and I'm going to throw some more of that Eastwood chassis black on all of this. I was going to shoot a cute little side video of me reloading the grease gun, you know. I think that's something a lot of guys don't really get, or they just throw it in and then it doesn't work, you know. So I was just gonna, you know, do that, and it turned into a huge mess. All right, get our bearing out of here. Now what I have is a Timken. This is a B01. I know National, that's the same brand, or same part number. So we'll knock that old race out of there and get this finished. Now we're going to see if she tightens down. Oh yeah. Oh, nope, not yet. You gotta be kidding me. I'm gonna fess up to my boo-boo here. I bought a wheel bearing when I probably didn't need one. It still had the same problem. It persisted. I took it back apart. Inner looked fine. Inner bearing. Finally cleaned up the spindle completely, and we have had some very bad bearings here one time or another, and we've got some serious problems right down here, just preventing the new bearing from going on all the way, I believe. At least that is the hope. So I am going to file these down, shine this thing up, and then hopefully our new bearing will go on all the way and it'll finally tighten up. Hey, hey, look at that. All right. I'm going to put the old new bearing back in here and just throw the new one on the shelf, and I will use it in some other project and spare this guy some expense. Oh no, I put the new inner. Okay, or outer race. That's not worth knocking out again. Maybe I'll put his on the shelf. Boy, I might need to adjust those brakes out again now that the bearing goes all the way in. Anyway, yeah. One way or another, I'm not going to bother charging him for a bearing. I will throw his new replacement on my shelf, and he's got a new bearing. Oh. Haha. We might want to interrace on the inside there, huh? Now let's give her a shot. Boy, I'm hitting on all cylinders today. Okay. Now we're talking. Let's just confirm that this is the answer here. You know me, I'm all about full disclosure, right? Okay, so it's tightish. Yeah. No more slop. Okay. Good to go. We have so much to do, so I don't know that I'm going to get bogged down in showing a lot of this. I have shown it in the past on the 48 Stylemaster. This is going to be exactly the same. I need to go through, since we pulled our steering gear and we've been messing around with our shift linkages up here on the mast, so on and so forth. I need to go through and recheck that all. The original shop manual, this is 42 to 48. Your older ones and your newer ones, generations, year models, will be the same, basically, but you'll want your book. But they do a very good job of showing, for the most part, what you need to do to get this all adjusted right. So if you have one of these vehicles, I always highly recommend, if you have a project vehicle, get yourself the original manual. So since I had the whole steering gear out, this clamp here and that bolt, I need to loosen that, and that is going to adjust from here to here is what we need to measure and adjust. I'll have to loosen our support down here and get that measurement right. And then I know I've shown this in the past with our selector rod, and that is right there, 3/4 of an inch gap there. I have no idea what we've got. And I also need to double check that 1 27/32 swing forward on the gear shift lever in relation to the back of the steering wheel. So we're going to do all that. I do have reverse, first, second, and third, but we got to make sure it is going to shift right. So keep moving on. Now, typically I suggest when you're starting with a rebuild, a cold, fresh engine, and you want to adjust your valve clearance, I usually suggest taking your recommended clearances, in this case 10 intake, 20 exhaust when hot, and loosening that up a couple thousandths for expansion, right? Well, you read in the book, they show a test that they did. I don't know why they adjusted intake to 6 and exhaust to 13 cold. Obviously, that's much tighter clearances. And then they go through the chart here, and they show that starting out with 6 and 13 at 70 degrees after 30 minutes of runtime, and oil and water are at 185 degrees, it has gone back to 6 and 13. And in fact, it never
tightened up like you think it would with things getting warmed up, but it actually got looser in the warm-up period. I'm not really sure why that is. So, you know, I usually recommend that just because I have been in situations where a new engine does not start, or I've had it where I didn't have to do anything to the engine, but it would not fire up, and it ended up being valvetrain was too loose. The valves just weren't opening, or, you know, could be too tight. They're not closing all the way. So whatever you want to do there, I guess, is, I don't know what to recommend you do with this information. I usually like to err on the side of caution, let's say, and sneak up on it. But according to this, a guy could set it at your 10 and 20 value, and they claim it'll go back once hot, it'll go back to that value, not actually tighten up. So I guess you guys can do a little experimenting on your own if you feel like it. This one, I may do a little experimenting on my own and just try to set them at the hot value, and then when we get it nice and hot and broke in, we'll recheck them and see where we're at. Well, cooling system is buttoned up. Hopefully we have no leaks. Ignition system is buttoned up. Hopefully we have no leaks, right? Starter's in, cables are on. I am going to figure out a good spot for this body ground here. This battery grounds out on the bell housing there, so they may even go off the same bolt. And I may be able to go down to the frame from there, or just get to the body somewhere. Anyway, I just want to make sure we have good continuity between the bell housing and the chassis. I'm also, I've got paint drying on the air cleaner. I'll show you that in a minute. My lines are done. As far as fuel and vacuum, I think I need to tighten those up. Fuel filter is attached down there. I just need a couple feet of 3/8 hose, and I'll get that attached. So, I guess now that the starter's in, I could finish up this wire. I could finish up alternator wires. Always something to do. So let's keep doing it. All right, I just called the tire shop where I get alignments done, and that is next Friday, a week and a day. This being Thursday. So here's all we have gotten done together so far on this video. I think it's pretty impressive, right? Obviously, I'm going to wait on, I don't have no rush for the hood. Windshield and wiper motor are going to be a different video. Speedo, I'm going to wait until the wiper motor's done. So really, battery tray, finish filling up fluids, maybe the hood, and obviously run it, time it, tune it, whatever we need to do there, and all of the problems that might rear their ugly heads. So let's get to that, and then see if we can get this finished up for now. So all this is a Willys Jeepster steering gear. We don't need to concern ourselves about that, but here is one of our rear shock absorbers. I have opened it up, and all in all, it looks pretty good inside, and it does the thing. I pulled the check valves out. I'm just going to throw those back in. I was at an antique store long ago already, much earlier on in this project, and came across this can of shock absorber fluid, good for anything but
Dial, some French word. So, for knee action and all shock absorbers except that Frenchy thing. So, I bought it in mind. Obviously, the can is cool, and obviously I'll keep it on the shelf, but I did buy it with the fluid in mind. So that is what I'm going to be putting back in here. On the previous Stylemaster, we put power steering fluid in. You can buy actual someone's modern representation formula of shock absorber fluid from like Chevs of the 40s, the filling station, whatever. ATF probably would work good, honestly. Aircraft shock absorber fluid, I don't know that there would be anything wrong with that. You're squeezing oil through an orifice is all you're doing, you know, and you probably don't want it to foam up. You probably don't want it to gel or thicken in cold weather. But other than that, you're squeezing oil through an orifice. That's all you're doing. So I'm going to get this cleaned up, and we will refill and tighten it down. That's a good little mess. That means we're doing something right. Now, were you the... I guess, which one is this? I'm going to have to figure that out real quick. But let's pretend that's going on there. By some stroke of genius, it seems I stumbled upon the right side and the right cover, so that's good, you know. Got the little plug out of the cover, and now we're just gonna top this off. Oh, now you're just excelling. Yeah, great. Making a retroactive mess with 80-year-old fluid, you know. Takes me back to a place I'd never been, I guess. Alright, I'm going to get this buttoned up, make sure this all works, and get it cleaned up, get it painted, work on the other one, then we're going to throw them in the car. Is it working? Yeah, it seems to be. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. She's working. It smells oily, but honestly, it's like when you have to park in the back of Rib Crib because it's so busy, and you walk past their smoker. It's an hour and a half away. I can get there by lunchtime. Now I better keep working. I was, of course, hoping to get away with just refilling these and away we go. However, the front seal on the left-hand side over there, oh yeah. See, I could tell this is all darker, and we've already got a leak coming out there. So, I may give them a little bit of time to soak up some oil and see if those things reseal themselves, and when they don't, I guess we're pulling them off, and either I'll finish the rebuild on those others and put them in here, or we'll come up with some other option. But I'm not gonna let it go home leaking this bad. would be interested in a video. My battery dead? Yeah, it sure is. In a video regarding putting all this back together and the adjustment of it and so on and so forth. If you're doing that and you need that instruction, you can certainly once again go to my 1948 Chevrolet playlist on my channel, and I do have a video regarding all of that. Having said that, when it comes to the alignment, both of these cars are customer vehicles, and so they go to the alignment shop because I want to make sure it is ready to go for a guy. Get these tightened up, and then I'm going to go replace the right side. Rubber bumper on the other side was no great shakes, and this one is completely gone, so I doubt this guy Dukes of Hazzards it much, but you never know. I may see before it goes home if I can get some in and replace them. Why is it that so many YouTubers find it necessary to share every bodily function with viewers? I don't. Do they still need mommy to come blow their noses for them, or what is it? I don't get it. Anyway, just a side question. Okay, our final objective here is to get the exhaust on. Now, I'm just piecing it together. As is very often the case, the pipe coming right off the exhaust manifold is fine. So between the manifold and where the muffler should be, that pipe is great. So I got a good old school thrush. You know, this thing is gonna sound awesome. I think I've talked to you about that already. Now, one of the that's gonna be a problem. I didn't even think about that. I may have to put a piece of pipe. Oh no, I have to put a piece of pipe in there anyway. Woo, that was a close one. Oh. All right, well, there's the exhaust. You can see it going forward. Nothing special. Oh, there is such a slope. I keep moving. Going towards this back door in the cement here. Okay. All right. Well, that there is a fresh perspective that I wholeheartedly approve of. It has been a long time since we've seen gear oil stat. It's okay, buddy. You're going to be all right. We're going to get you out of here. Motor oil, if you please. Coolant, by your leave. Sorry, I don't know how I got so weird, but my mom says I'm cool. Anyway, as for the steering gear, a new idea that I'm going to try on this one, not that I'll know any difference, you know, personally, but my good buddy Larry, I have worked the last transmission rebuild video for one of these, Chevy 3-speeds, and then the last torque tube rebuild and ring and pinion. We kind of checked the adjustment on the ring and pinion and everything. That was Larry's. And he mentioned this idea to me. He got it from somewhere else. I don't know if he knows somebody at a shop somewhere, or it came from a forum on the internet, or I have no idea. But anyway, he bought John Deere cornhead grease to put in the steering gearbox. Apparently somebody somewhere thinks that's the perfect product to use, and it is pretty hopeful. It is a very thin, almost watery, a watery gelatinous grease, you know. I don't know how to prove it to you, but anyway, that's what I got. Just ran into John Deere and got a tube of cornhead grease, and I am going to squeeze that in there. I see no reason why it won't work. I have every confidence to believe it will. I mean, corn headers on a combine have got to have grease, you know. So if they stand up with this grease to that abuse, I'm pretty sure a steering gear will. And Chevrolet, by the way, is never specific in the manuals on these old cars to what exactly you put in there. So here, just for a comparison, we have regular high temp grease and the John Deere, and I'm sure other brands are pretty similar, the cornhead grease. At what point does is grease a liquid or a solid? And does that just completely depend on temperature and viscosity? I don't know. But this cornhead grease almost looks liquid, you know, like it's right on the verge of being one. And you know, this is just thick and goopy and stringy, like usual. So anyway, through video, does that even mean anything? Probably not. Well, a very happy Monday morning to you folks. Friday, of course, I've said I have this scheduled for an alignment. I believe I've said some things I really got to get done before then. A, does it run? Right? I patched together, emphasis on the word patched, our battery tray. Just made some angle iron, threw that in there to reinforce that side that was missing, fixed the strap that was completely gone there, fix the bottom end. I'm going to finagle this, and it takes a little bit of finagling, you know, to get it down in there and get the bolts in. So I'm going to struggle with that for a few minutes, get it bolted in. I've got a new battery, and then when I get the new battery in, I need to make a crossbar. Of course, this thing would have had a square frame going around the outside perimeter of the original battery, and then the center had holes to accommodate bolting it down. So I will probably just do a simple crossbar, just anything to hold the battery in at this point. Anyway, I'm going to do that. I want to get it running today. I want to get it tuned today. We may or may not get the hood on. And then I think we're going to be done with all the mechanicals. My debate right now in my mind is, do I pursue the windshield before it has to go to the alignment shop? Basically, it can go the morning of Friday. I think 10 a.m. is when it's scheduled to be on the rack, so it is possible I could get that done. I do have another piece of glass because one's broken. It's just, if I run into problems like I did on the Stylemaster, that's where it gets a little iffy, and I can't trust that they can leave this thing inside at the tire shop if I can't get to it right away, if it's raining, Anyway, I'm gonna forget all that right now and get the battery in. Alrighty. I think I got plenty of cable for everything here. Get this one going. Where are you? There we go. Make sure our starter still works here. First time filling our new tank here. I got 2 ounces of stable in here. I fully plan on getting this car back as soon as possible, but you never know. Now I'll try to get at least a fraction of this in the bowl here. I made another one of these bottles. I put a gasket under the lid. It leaked terribly. See? Guess I'll try to get it down the intake. That'll help. We'll try that. Well, hello there, little fella. I don't know why you quit, but you work. Sounds great. Surely it didn't run out already. Sounds good. We got a terrible gas leak on the line, but we know the pump is working. So I'm going to go around and tighten some things up, I guess. And man, I don't know if I even need to throw a timing light on this thing. It sounds great. Okay, initial startup.
Everything looks good. Temperature was coming up, so that gauge works. Oil pressure was at 30, so we've got plenty of oil pressure, which is great. I don't have my dwell meter, and I want that because it has RPM gauge on it. So when I come back from lunch, I will do a break-in. Now, a lot of guys will say you need to start it and immediately you get it up to 2,000 RPMs immediately to break in these flat tappets. You know, everything has to be such a science with so many people, you know. In the old days, we got it running in the shop, we pulled it out, and we took it on the road, and we floored it a few times, you know, and ran it at different speeds, and broke it in that way, and they lasted just as long as anything else. I am going to run it for 20 minutes at 2,000, just because that's what guys do, but I'm more concerned about things like, do I have oil pressure, and is it way out of time and gonna melt the exhaust manifold off, you know, things like that before I take it right up to 2,000 RPMs. So that's just my opinion. I would rather make sure things are working before I go redlining the thing, which 2,000 is on this is probably questionable. Anyway, no, not quite. This is the end of the clutch pedal, and it is loose. It keeps pivoting, and that's because it has been installed on the wrong side of the lever. So these have they kind of look like a file, an exaggerated file tooth pattern, and those lines lock together when it's in the right place. And those teeth are on this side and this side. So it has been reassembled backwards, which is why it keeps pivoting. So I'm going to take that apart real quick. Flip that around. I did put it in first and reverse, and it does go both directions. So we're on the right track there. I don't see anything else concerning. Couple fuel leaks that I've tightened up. I'll recheck oil and antifreeze. And other than that, I think we're going to get this thing on the road. So yeah, here we go. Like I was saying, kind of have that file tooth pattern there, and they had the two smooth sides of the two pieces put together instead of those, which just doesn't work too well.
us a good 20 minutes. Everything, let me turn this off. Maybe I'll start it again and let it idle and cool down a little bit naturally. That's good with me. Oil pressure stayed up the entire time. The temperature hung just right above 180 the entire time. Of course, I put the fan right in front of the radiator, give us some simulated air current, some wind, you know. So I will mess around with idle speed and get that set, and I really don't think it sounds like we need to time it at all. It sounds like it's just dead on. So I'll make the distributor, I think I already tightened it, but I'll make sure the way it starts, the way it stops, even at fast idle, it's on, you know. So I started putting hood hinges on while I was running it, keeping an eye on it. There are no, did I mention there's no leaks at all underneath? So right now I'm going to start it, let it run at a slow speed for a couple minutes, keep that coolant and that water circulating in there, let it cool down a little. Then I guess I'll readjust the valves, and we'll call that done. Oh, I did put it in first and reverse and moved like 4 inches either direction. So we're good there too, so far. Where's my other towel? I keep saying I'm gonna get it, and then I never do. Okay, I ended up putting the timing light on it just for fun, and we were just a frog's hair off, you know. So I ended up adjusting it that much. It's terribly hard to see, even for me. That peephole way down in there on the bell housing, and looking at the point and the BB, you know. I think on the Fleetmaster videos, that series, when I got that running for the first time and I tuned it up, I'm pretty sure I managed to get a camera down in there somehow to give you a look at how that all looks. So, sorry, I can't find 20. What are you? 10? 24, 22. You gotta be there, right? Okay. So yeah, that's good, and I'll tighten that distributor down right where it's at. And I was reminded that when you grab the distributor to move it when it's running on these, with the external terminal, you know, the ground wire going to the distributor, you know, you ground out to the metal base of the distributor pretty good when it's running. So I got a little tingle in the old fingers on the left hand, which is always fun. Okay, now remember I adjusted these cold. I ended up putting them to the value we need to end up at, right? A lot of times I go to a couple thou over. But I think this time, according to their chart, their conclusion is it ends up, when hot, right back where you started. It's a great opportunity to burn yourself. I just did on my wrist. The exhaust on number 6 was dead on. The intake was slightly loose. Honestly, that could be a difference of I didn't do it right to begin with. I don't know. Okay, started with 6 because the distributor was already pointing there. Anyway, I'm going to go through these. I want to turn the fan back on because I'm sweating over this hot engine. Same procedure. Go through the firing order, check them all out, tighten them if need be, loosen them if need be. Then I'm going to permanently install the valve cover. Oh, I think I showed you a close-up. The front rockers, you know, you're fighting an uphill path here with the oil. They're always the last to get oil coming out of the weep holes on the top of the rockers, and so that's why I showed you with the close-up camera when it was running that very front one was finally starting to bubble. So we were finally getting oil out of there, which is always a relief. All right, I'm on my last one, and I gotta be honest, I'm being pretty nitpicky, really. I've tightened probably 3 out of the 12. Tightened or, well, loosened some too, but 3 or 4 anyway. And I'm being nitpicky, like I said. They honestly would have been just fine, but you know, they either didn't have quite enough drag on the feeler gauge, or I had to force it in, you know. So, but we're here, we might as well get it done as good as we can. 153624, and that is done. So we can throw this on it. Should have a cutout for the water neck there. That back on. I think it had some rigged up screws and hardware to hold that on originally, so I got to track something there down. Maybe some clamps, hold down clamps under the heads. Get my distributor cap snap back on, and we are considering ourselves finished under the hood. Wow. Okay. All right. Okay. Oh, yeah. All right, I've got the bottom 2 hinge bolts in. Let's be able to do this. Something like that. Well, now a hood's on my neck. That's fine. Okay, where's my ratchet? Oh, okay. Now, where'd the bolt go? There we are. All right. Oh. No. Before this vehicle goes home, I have got to take some measurements and see if I can come up with any kind of tool to make hood springs easier. Again, it would never be a big seller. Oh. But for my own sanity and fingers, it might be well worth it. That one clipped in. Had to use 2 screwdrivers on the other one. Now if I can have this one back. Oh. Okay, it raised up off my broomstick. Especially when you got brand new springs, you know, they're something else. By the by, when I was doing, I think one of the wiring harness videos, for some reason I thought something about the ignition switch was bad. Just for your information, I'm sure some of you already know this, that these ignition switches are made that you can pull the key out Now, is this the new one or the old one? I forget where I'm at. This looks new. Anyway, the original switches are made so that you can turn the key all the way to the right. It will keep running. But then once you go back, shut the engine off, you cannot get it back there. And that is a valet feature so that you can have the kid park your car, take your keys with you, and it can't be started again. So
I'm a victim of circumstance.
well, guys, we have evidence it moves anyway. Drove it around to the other side of the shop. A couple of issues already reared their head. They're ugly heads, no less. I couldn't idle it down, and I discovered that the throttle lever is just barely kissing the top of the intake manifold. So I guess I'm just going to add some thickness to our base gasket, and see if that'll take care of that. And then for whatever reason, I still can't get, when I'm driving, I still can't get second or third. That detent to go into your higher gears is not working with me. So I'm going to try to iron a couple of those issues out today, and then in 2 days it gets in alignment. I decided I may pull off the trim, the stainless trim, and I guess I could even dive into the wiper mechanism. But I'm not going to go as far as removing glass and trying to get all that done within a couple days. So just be a little smart about this for a change, right? So anyway, I'm going to keep fiddling around, trying to make it better and better for a guy. I appreciate you coming along. I think probably the last video we're going to have is that windshield and the wiper motor. Maybe you'll see a little bit of us taking it back home. I don't know. But whatever the case, I do appreciate you coming along, hanging out with me. God bless you. We'll see you on the next one. Well, how do you get this back off? Got all these rigid lines attached to it, and now it doesn't want to go anywhere.
That's what I'm talking about.